If the original show had themes you can't handle, what's the point in even making an adaptation for it? Hey, what's up, Nerd fam? This is your boy Gashawn. I want to welcome you to Enter the Nerd. Today, I want to talk about something that was disappointing, surprising, no, considering how things in entertainment and adaptations in particular are going, but still disappointing. So, as you know, Netflix is making a new Avatar: The Last Airbender series. And what did we get before, right? Obviously, the movie by M. Night Shyamalan was pretty disgusting, especially in comparison to the original series, right? Now, I'll say over a year ago, I had heard certain things about casting, about the casting being more accurate, and then paying more attention to things, and I went, okay, this sounds promising, especially because the original creators of the show were involved, right? That was really, really cool to me. Then I heard they were leaving, right? They left, and we didn't know why, and that was a bit alarming. But then I saw the trailer, like we all did, right? And the trailer looked pretty dope. Especially them emulating that opening sequence that shows all the benders from each nation like the show did. How Ba Sing Se looks. So many things looked pretty spot on. And it got us all really happy when it came to how it looked. Or at least it got me happy. But, of course, there's got to be some shit. Just to be transparent or blunt, I'll say, right? So, the first thing I hear is about Sokka, about his sexist undertones, or pretty much some of the things that he said in the show being toned down or maybe even omitted because they felt like it wasn't necessary, right? Which is interesting, right? Because how many times when people take a show like this, they normally inject that stuff, but apparently it was too much. Here's the thing about this. This is rather nuanced. It wasn't like the creators of the show made Sokka say sexist things because they believed that it was okay. These things changed throughout the series because, number one, he's a kid. He's not an adult. He grew up in a particularly male-dominated village that had very traditional means of how they looked at people. Even Katara had to go through it from several different places, like the guy who didn't want to teach her waterbending, stuff like that. And throughout the series, his jilted way of thinking about women changed, especially when you saw the whole Kyoshi Warriors thing. And it was done really well, how he grew out of it. So it's like, why take that character development away from him? Because they feel like people watching it can't understand the nuance of it? What's the point in making the show if you're going to take a key element of that character? But it doesn't stop there, apparently. So today, even when I was at the gym, I was there with my boy, and then he shows me something else, where they talk about some of Katara's gender issues being taken away. So even some of the things that she goes through, which are also part of the story and help her figure out her identity and place in the world, are being taken out of it. Because they feel like it does not translate well into today's society. Well, number one, it was something made almost 15 years ago, I believe. That's where it was made from. I think people can understand when this show was made. And also, it doesn't take place in a society that's modern. So when you watch it, you can't put your 2024 New York or wherever you're from's lens and try to apply it to an ancient world. An ancient fictional world, by the way, but regardless, ancient. This is such a weird thing that people do, especially with adaptations. Well, I don't understand it. I don't see this world this way, so let's change it to fit something that I really want. At this point, why wouldn't you then just make your own thing? It sounds like you didn't really like key aspects of the original story, and now you want to make your own thing, but you're using this as a platform to jettison your own ideas. Which, to be honest, isn't surprising, right? Because we've seen this in the Marvel movies, we've seen this in DC movies, we've seen it in so many adaptations where they have chosen to sometimes inject things when they did not just take it away, but they don't trust the audience to be able to understand complicated themes? Or do you not trust yourself to be able to tell that story in an intelligent way? I'm not sure which one it's going to. But here's the funny thing. This has happened in other fictional works, right? For example, Luke Cage. Luke Cage in the comics was someone, also on Netflix show, coincidentally, in the comics was a dude who wasn't necessarily the best guy when he was young, was raised by really religious parents, was involved in life of crime, and became something way better. He learned. But instead, the creator of the show was like, we don't need that trope. We just need someone who, I guess, is benevolent, was framed, because that's what they want to do. Even the whole thing with him having like a tattered hoodie on and being a bulletproof black man. See how they injected that stuff in there versus telling the story that was there? If that's the case, why even take it? If you don't like the character for why even take it? And then this, unfortunately, not even just with fictional things. Then what about non-fictional? There's another thing I'll use, since Netflix seems to be the home of some of these. We also have something called The Harder They Fall. Now, I did a video on this a while back because all of the figures that were actually in this movie were historical African-American figures who were really prominent to the development of the West. But you wouldn't know that by watching this because they crammed them all together and made what they proclaimed to be a Black Avengers movie versus what they could have done, which was an anthology following each one of them. But they did not, because they didn't like the fact that some of these people in here were actually objectively terrible people, and they made them sympathetic. Why even do that then? Why not just make a Western made with fictional people versus using these real people that these whoever you have on screen doesn't actually reflect who they were in history. So you're not teaching anybody anything really. They're just the figures by name, right? But either way, I think you get the point that I'm getting at, which is there's a source, whether it's a historical source or a non-fictional source of a story. These writers, directors, whatever, these teams come together and bastardize it, and then try to figure out why it doesn't do well when people who, let's just say, know The Last Airbender, watch the original series, and go, well, that's not what I want. And then they destroy it in the reviews and go, oh, it's because these people aren't progressive enough or something like that. It's like, no, people had an expectation. There was a fandom behind whatever you decided to adapt that expected whatever they expected. And you decided to subvert their expectations by saying, I know what you want, but I'm going to give you what I want. And knowing that, you still don't understand why they rejected it? It happens with a ton of these like anime things. Look at Cowboy Bebop. You know what Cowboy Bebop was. You know what show it was. And then to turn it into that and then be surprised and then try to blame the audience. You know what? The audience had an expectation. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter if it's Harry Potter. Doesn't matter if it's Twilight. All of those people who spent their money and time reading those books have an expectation of what you're going to adapt to. And that's actually perfectly okay. What's not okay is for you to know that, pervert it, and then get mad when they are upset about how you perverted the vision of their favorite medium. So, what do you think? I'm obviously still going to watch this just so I can understand what happens here, because even the creators, when they put out a statement saying this was like the hardest decision they ever had leaving, and now I think we can kind of understand why they left the show, especially if there's more decisions like this that perhaps change the trajectory of certain characters. Like my friend also talked about one where they might not show the destruction of Ba Sing Se when they have the war there for some odd reason. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't found anything on that. But if that's true, maybe my editor can find something like that. If that's true, that's stupid too, because that's part of the story. Why do you want to leave that out? Anyway, let me know what you think. Do you think it's going to be a complete dumpster fire? Do you think that it's still going to be good anyway? What do you still like about it? Let's have that conversation. Until then, keep watching these adaptations and enter the nerd.